Hello, I'm Colin Royce, and I'm going to show you how to conduct and score the post-op QRS cognitive domain. So in this video, you will understand how to conduct the cognitive domain and also some of the rules around how to score and record that. The cognitive domain has 5 questions, and there are 3 parallel forms. And parallel forms meaning that you have different numbers and word lists, and that reduces the learning effect. So each time you conduct the post-op QRS, there will be a different form from the one previously. The 5 questions are these. The orientation, which is about telling me your name, the city we're in, and the date of your birth. The second is called numbers forward. And this is where we read out increasing lists or lines of numbers, and they have to reply to them in the same order that you said them. The third question is called numbers backwards. And this is where, when we read out a line, they have to repeat it in reverse order. The fourth question is where we read a list of words, and they have to recall as many of those words as possible. The final question is about word generation. And what we do is we give them a letter, and they have to use that as the first letter of the word. And they have to generate as many words as possible in the 30-second time period. So just a heads up, you're going to need to have a stopwatch or a timer, for example, on your phone to conduct the last test. I'm now going to demonstrate to you how we actually conduct this test. And the first thing is, it can be done face-to-face or via the telephone, and that's been validated. Secondly, ensure that your patient is comfortable and not rushed. Speak slowly. So a rule of thumb is that every letter or word or number, the rate that you speak that should not be more than 1 per second. Also, we have the exact instructions of what to say on the form, and I will demonstrate this now. For the first question, please tell me your name, the city we are in, and your place of birth. The second question, I'm going to read you a list of numbers. Listen carefully, then when I am finished, I would like you to repeat them back to me in the same order that I read them. So, for example, if I say 1, 2, 3, you would say 1, 2, 3. 5, 6. Then 1, 6, 4, and so forth. The third question is similar, but the numbers are repeated backwards. I'm going to read you some numbers, but this time when I stop, I would like you to say them in reverse order. So for this example, if I said 1, 2, 3, you would say 3, 2, 1. 3, 4. Then 1, 5, 9, and so forth. The fourth question, I'm going to read out a list of words. Please listen carefully, as when I am finished, I would like you to repeat back to me as many of the words as you can remember. You can just say them in any order, And if you're not sure if you've said a word, just say it in case. Desk, ranger, bird, shovel, stove, mountain, glasses, towel, cloud, boat, lamb, gun, pencil, church, fish. And now you wait for them to reply and you count the number of correct words. The final question, I'm going to name a letter and I'd like you to state as many words as you can in 30 seconds that begins with this letter. Try to avoid proper nouns, such as people's names, names of countries, etc. Numbers, or the same word with a different ending, such as long, longer, longish. The letter is F. Now, of course, you have to have your stopwatch or timer ready to go so that 1 second after you've said the letter F, you hit the stopwatch. And at 30 seconds, you stop. And what you're counting is the number of correct responses. So now let's go through how to score and record this. The first rule is that if any part of the survey can be administered, then the cognitive domain can be recorded. So, for example, if the patient is still recovering from anesthesia, but the physiological domain has been attempted, such as blood pressure, heart rate, and so forth, and the patient cannot answer any questions, then they will score 0 for each item because they have not recovered in the cognitive domain. The only other times when you don't score the cognitive domain is when the patient's not available. So if the patient refuses the entire scope, but simply will not participate, then you will score 666 for each cognitive question. However, if they have attempted the scale in any way, but then refuse to answer one of the cognitive questions, then you will score that as a 0. 777 is the score when the assessor is unable or inappropriate to conduct the survey. But remember, this applies only if the entire survey is not conducted at that time point. If even one item, for example, the blood pressure or heart rate is recorded, then cognition can be scored at 0. 888 is when the patient is unavailable, such as they have made an appointment and then cancel it. And 999 is if the assessor was unavailable. I'm just going to run through now for each of the questions. So for C1, the maximum score is 3. That is if they got the correct name, the city, and their date of birth. They can also score 0 if they haven't got any of them correct. For C2, it's the number of lines that they get correct. So, for example, if they correctly said the 7194 line, but made a mistake in the next line, you would score this as a 3. And the same rule applies for numbers back. For C4, it's the number of words they have correctly remembered. And for C5 is the number of words that they have generated that are correct. And remember, if they said a people's name or a country, that does not count, or if they use multiple words, such as long, longer, longish, that doesn't count. The final thing to talk about is what we call low baseline cognition. Now, each of the cognitive tests, other than orientation, has a measurable performance variability, which means that at different times of the day or different times of the week, the same person without surgery will score differently. So what we have done is allowed a tolerance factor of a certain number of lines or words or letters that is included as a tolerance factor, which means that they can have that as a variability. Now, the problem is if you score at your baseline fewer than that tolerance factor, then you are classified as a low baseline cognition. Now, you can still be scored for recovery if you're a low baseline cognition, but it has a different scoring algorithm, which has been developed and validated. The fact that they are low baseline is reported in the data output so that you can look at your groups and identify or subclassify those patients who had low baseline cognition.